So very good. Here we are. Okay.
Welcome, everybody. This is Terry Hoffmann with Hoffmann Coaching. And if you don't know me yet, I work with some of the world's most amazing and intelligent people, one of which I have here with me today. Dr. Daniel Kessler is the founder and medical director of the Kadan Institute. And Dr. Kessler was kind enough to schedule some time to meet with me today to provide some information for you about functional medicine. So I first want to tell you a story about the first time I met Dr. Kessler, which he may or may not remember. I did some extended work for a large local primary care network several years ago. And one of the things that I would do is do some training and educational stuff and manage their big staff meetings. So we had a staff of about, I'd say 150 in the room. And somebody mentioned the fact that they had a patient that almost died that day. And what had happened with that patient is that Dr. Kessler had noticed something that was unusual and very difficult to identify. And he identified the patient, got the patient to the emergency room, and literally saved the patient's life. And the whole, I don't know if you remember that, Dr. Kessler, but the whole room stood up and gave him applause. And so that's just one sample of the work that Dr. Kessler does. So Dr. Kessler did his residency at the Mayo Clinic, and he has a lot of natural talent. He has a lot of talents in general. One thing that he might not want to brag about, but I know about, is that he is a speed reader. So he is got a voracious appetite for learning, and he can go through a book in very, very short time. So he's a multi-talented person, and most importantly, a really nice and caring person. So welcome, Dr. Kessler.
Thank you very much, Terry, and thank you for having me here tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I actually remember that story, very, very briefly, about that patient who almost died and ultimately was just about listening. And then, I think everybody in the end, there was also some luck involved, but it was the right call to make. And ultimately, I'm really glad that that person made it. So thanks for remembering and sharing that story.
Absolutely. It was inspirational for everybody there. And I think there's a saying that luck is the reward of those who work hard. So
sure.
Luck and skill and discipline for sure. So if you could tell me a little bit about the Kadan Institute.
So for those of you listening tonight, so the Kadan Institute was really founded for the main reason to spread awareness of functional medicine. And what we do is we provide access for patients. There's a lot of patients out there, all of you that are listening, either you directly or someone who's been to the doctor frustrated, not necessarily that the doctor is a bad doctor, but not having the time to really be heard the way they need to be heard. So the idea was to not only work with patients directly, but to also give back and teach other practitioners, physicians, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, and even students. Over the years, I've had a lot of students who rotated with me through my various clinics, and to actually teach them and say, look, let's put the human part back into medicine and really listen to who is really sitting in front of us. And that was one of the reasons why Kadan Institute was founded and is now on the verge of becoming not just a local player, but really a global player, also in the educational arena. But I very, very much enjoy, and to this day, I see patients, just like you guys are listening to our presentation tonight. This is actually how I see my patients virtually, from the comfort of your own home, to listen to you and get to the root cause of what's going on with you, and then be able to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, that relationship cannot be understated. Taking the time to get to know your patients and being aware of, when they're feeling good and when they're not feeling good, and being able to discern that. What a gift for yourself and a gift for the patient and their families. So that's pretty phenomenal. So can you explain to us what functional medicine means?
Sure. So in a nutshell, functional medicine first, it is really about the medicine of you. So the person who is really sitting in front of you, to really listen to your story and identify, why is it really that you have certain symptoms to begin with. So, for example, if you take a very common condition such as irritable bowel syndrome, or if someone has, for example, diabetes or pre-diabetes, or if someone has gained weight, then a lot of patients are put into this pot, and the same prescriptions are given, but the solutions may be very different, and oftentimes are. And so the idea is really so what I do is I listen to the patient, and then I make sure that we don't miss anything crazy, right? So we want to make sure, first of all, that the patient is safe, that we make sure that all the traditional tests are ordered. And then we add some personalized tests also on top of that can involve spit testing, so saliva or urine, stool, and then blood, to really get a comprehensive idea of what's going on. And then we put that into context of your story to then get you the outcome that you're looking for. So in a nutshell, it's the medicine about you. Okay. So with each individual client.
Okay. So it's taking us away from the whole cog-will medical treatment and really going back to personalized, patient-centered medicine, and really like on a biological basis with tests that are specific towards that patient.
Yeah, I think on a biological basis, and I also know, you as a coach, I know that's very important. Also, the human aspect is very important, that, it's really about listening and then interviewing the person correctly, knowing what questions to ask, and really get to the root. And sometimes it takes a little bit of, I call it the art of functional medicine, really the art of, developing that trust between the doctor and the patient, to really get to the root and saying, look, what are some emotional components sometimes that may be contributing? What are some things that are hidden? So that's really the idea behind it.
Mm-hmm. So why would a physician or a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant want to learn about functional medicine?
Well, I think first of all, it's not just patients that are actively seeking out solutions. Patients are, we all know that our healthcare system is broken, that our healthcare system does a lot of good things as far as acute care. So if someone has a heart attack, or if someone has a broken bone, for example, then, we have good methods and methodologies to fix that. But, most of us are really suffering. And some of us are also interested in what can we do prevention-wise. And now we're at a stage where also health practitioners are realizing that something has to give. And so that's where, institutions like the Kadan Institute comes in to say, look, health practitioners are also humans. They have families. A lot of people have no idea how many hours we work, that we are away from our families. And so we are able to give them the opportunity to work from their homes virtually with clients that they want to work with, and also, of course, help them. And then from a business perspective, also be rewarded for that, as they can provide the outcomes for the clients. Just to give you an idea, so a lot of nurse practitioners, for example, that I used to work with, a lot of times they can easily see sometimes between anywhere from 400 to 500 patients a month, and that's a lot. If you break it down, by the hour. And it doesn't end there, because they take their work home, just like a lot of us do, not just in the medical field. A lot of us take our work home, and then our family time, suffers for that reason. So we really
Literally and figuratively.
exactly,
Yes.
So anyway, so that's why, if we don't take care of ourselves as practitioners, then how can we take care of our patients who need us? There's such a huge shortage of doctors. And so that's the idea why we focus on working with patients directly. We help train other practitioners, and then we also help the future generation, where we then teach other students how to apply these functional medicine principles.
Yeah. And that, of course, is super, super important to me. That's right in my wheelhouse. There's so many statistics about physicians and burnout and, even suicide. Like I think it's like 2.4 times the norm for women physicians, and close to that, slightly less, but still way higher than the normal populations for physician suicide. And we've seen, the delivery of medicine get contorted. And, a long time ago, so my background, as you know, I'm a Florida licensed mental health counselor and have worked in medicine before I was a coach. And one of my very first supervisors sat me down one of my first days at work and said, anytime anything comes up and you're going to get in trouble, what I want you to think about is what's in the patient's best interest. And if you execute that, if you deliver whatever's in the patient's best interest, I've got your back 100%. And boy, that was a really critical learning for me. And I think the field of medicine has just been, distorted to the point where it's easy to forget that true north. And so a solution for physicians and for extenders where they can provide that high quality care for patients and they desire patients. I want to take care of patients. So, this is just an amazing opportunity for doctors, nurse practitioners, PAs to take a little bit of that rat race of medicine stress off of them and actually create a model of medicine that's better for the patient and better for the provider.
Absolutely. And most important, of course, also our patients, who need us. So that's really the idea, behind functional medicine. And that's one of the reasons that Kadan was founded. So we're very excited where we are. We're very excited for our growth, and, we're open for business on every level. So very, very exciting times.
Very excited. I'm so excited for you. Can you tell me, and we'll start with the practitioner. So if the audience out there watching this right now is a practitioner and they're interested in beginning to work with you with their practice, what are the steps? What do they need to do? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I think first of all, they can go to our website, kadaninstitute.com. So KADAN Institute.com. And they can provide us their contact information, and they receive what we call a blueprint outline, what is all involved in working with us at the Kadan Institute. But in essence, there's really 3 steps that you really need. And this is one thing that distinguishes Kadan from other programs. So the first one is, of course, you have to be able to get started with functional medicine. So you have to have a clinical component. So we have an online course that you can take from the comfort of your own home, and you have plenty of time to complete it at your own speed. And it's very comprehensive but it teaches you how to really get started with a patient who wants to come to you for functional medicine. And the conditions, the clinical conditions that we focus on to get started are things that we see every day in our practice. So digestive concerns, for example, things like IBS, weight concerns where people want to, for example, lose 20 pounds and they don't know how to do it. Female hormone imbalances, that's always a big topic. And then also your fatigued patient. I mean, who here doesn't want more energy? I think all of us want more energy. And then also I put one thing in there from a preventive standpoint. What can you do for a patient who just wants to know what can they do to prevent, like a wellness type overview. So that's step number one. And this is meant as an augmentation of their skills that many practitioners already have. They have wonderful degrees that they worked very hard for, but so they actually grow clinically on their existing knowledge. And then the second step is a business analysis of saying, for example, if you were a nurse practitioner, then I would say, Terry, what do you really want? Where do you want to work? Who do you want to work with? We give you complete freedom to choose your individual niche. So if you want to work with women with thyroid problems, or if you want to work with women who have irritable bowel syndrome, for example, or if you want to exclusively work with people and just help them not become a diabetic, they're pre-diabetic and you prevent it, then you can do that. So we sit down and show you from a business standpoint, and you say, you want to make a certain amount of money per month, per year, then we break down the math and show you how to do that. And the good thing is that, the earlier number I mentioned of 500, this gets significantly slashed down to, and I know this may sound outrageous to some of you listening, but, again, because we want to also, we need, as practitioners, we need family time. So you can work with as little as 2 to 3 patients a week to maybe 10 patients a week, and then it really comes down to the math, how much you want to make. But the most important thing is, can you help this patient? Do you have the ability to help them? And then when you do, and only then, and then the money will follow. And then the third aspect to to our teaching program is the marketing. So the first question, of course, is where are all these clients who want help? How do we find them? So we have a wonderful team, a wonderful marketing team that we work with. And as part of the program, each nurse practitioner gets their own website, gets marketed, and then they have an option if they're in Florida. Currently, I'm only licensed in Florida. They have the opportunity to work with me for ongoing mentorship. So where I teach them beyond the 8 or 10 weeks of online training, and which I think is important because it takes away the fear when you first get started. You may not always know what to do, despite the training, which is very comprehensive and it's very straightforward to apply it, but questions will come up and then I provide that mentorship. So that's the idea, how nurse practitioners can get started. That's very, very simple.
Very good. So you basically have a 3-prong approach. You've got the clinical knowledge, the business knowledge, and then the assistance marketing, and you hold their hand through each step of the way.
Correct. And the idea is that by the time they are done with the training, that during this time, the marketing team actually is already working with them, so that by the time they're done, after the 8 to 10 weeks, that website is finished, initial targeting has been sent out, and so our current practitioners, they have at least 1 or 2 clients already in the pipeline by the time they're done, which means that their return of investment can be recouped very, very easily.
And so if I were a nurse practitioner and I were working full-time already, could I continue my full-time job, go through your training, and start getting some patients before I had to take that leap?
Yeah, I think that most importantly, so first of all, I will tell you my own story. So So I used to work at the Mayo Clinic here in Jacksonville. I was very fortunate. And while I was with Mayo, I did my own training on the side in functional medicine, which happened after patient hours, after clinic hours, and on weekends. And I did that for a total of 2 years, almost 3 years. And then when I graduated from residency, then I had my first job, and I worked long hours. I worked probably about, anywhere from 9 to 10 hours a day, seeing about 40 to 50 patients a day. And then after about another year or so, then I started to see patients in the evening hours, like one patient here and there. But I had to make sure in my contract that I had signed that I had the ability to do that. So all of the extenders that are watching, it's very simple. You would take the ethical route and look at your contract, make sure that it allows you to do that, which for the most part it should, because it happens outside of clinic hours. And then, so the idea with Kadan is that it allows you to do this part-time, to transition. And if you have a goal to do this full-time, then, again, it comes down to the math. How many patients do you want to see? How much money do you want to make? What is really your goal? And if you only want to do this part-time, so one of our practitioners, she is a cardiology nurse practitioner, and she works in the cath lab, a few days a week. And then Friday afternoons, for example, she's dedicated to functional medicine. And right now she has about 2 or 3 clients that she is going to see during that time. And then later she's going to expand maybe on a Saturday. And then what I do personally, when I got started with Kadan, I used to do urgent care. I worked a few days during the month, and then patients would sign up to work with me, and then I would see them virtually in the evening, sometimes on a Sunday morning, right? So which doctor does that? After church or before church, or whenever it was really convenient, and whatever I allowed my hours to be, I have the power to set my own schedule. And so that's another aspect, another positive aspect for the practitioners who work with us. We show them, you can have all the time in the world you want. It just depends on what you want and how much you want to do that.
Yeah. And, I've spoken with so many overworked, overburdened healthcare professionals. And so the thought of making a change can be scary and exhausting, but
Yep.
the cost of not making the change builds up over time and that's the road to nowhere. So,
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
have, like nirvana for me is to have a practitioner who is doing what they love. They're able to do it as much or as little as they want to, and then live the rest of their life. And when you're able to do that, I think that makes you a better practitioner. You're well rested, you're well balanced, and you're able to do your job better and
Sure.
having a more fulfilled life overall.
Right.
So you're telling our friends out there that it's possible for them to have that.
Absolutely. If you want it, you have to grab the bull by the horns. You have to run with the bulls, not just the one in Spain, but you can run with the bulls here with the Kadan Institute, and we show you the way.
Very nice. Very nice. So the first step would be for them to go onto your website, put their information in, and set up a call with you.
Yeah. So first, if they provide, and the same principle holds true with patients, and we'll talk about the patients next. But from the practitioner standpoint, you provide us the contact. If you don't want to schedule an initial call, that's fine. If you want to read through the blueprint, to kind of get an idea what it is we offer, and then if you want to find out more information, then all you have to do is book a call. There's a calendar, one for patients, one for practitioners, and it's 100% free. Doesn't cost you a thing. And then this is the idea that we get an idea of what you want to achieve, and if it's a good fit, we work together. But either way, you will get tons of value.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the worst case scenario is you stay exactly where you are because there's nothing to lose from checking out the blueprint, having the
Yeah.
call, and
Yeah.
making
Either,
the decision.
I think this is a nice transition over to also the patient standpoint, because, as you know, you're a coach, right? And when you speak to people, and I know there are probably some coaches listening, and when I worked with coaches before, also as patients, one of the things they always wanted to know: how does a doctor think when they, talk to the patients? And from a motivational standpoint, what really gets a person to act. And ultimately, there's two reasons, right? So one, because they want to, or because they have to. And if you really think about, as a practitioner, you're more than welcome to continue to see 500 patients a month, if that, fulfills you. If you like to stay away from your family 24 hours a day and not see your children grow up, I mean, if you don't care about those things, obviously you care about those things. But then all you have to do is, reach out. If you're, happy with the amount of money you make, great, but where I'm getting at is that it's like a circle. You run around the circle every day, and you have this comfort zone. Things are familiar, but then growth happens just outside that circle, and you go off on this little tangent, like a little line, and then you have to have someone to hold your hand, just like a child, learns to walk, someone to hold your hand. And this is what we do at the Kadan Institute, what I do with practitioners and also with patients, to guide them and say it's safe, to take that first step, because otherwise you just keep running around the circle and nothing ever changes.
Right. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
Right.
Yeah. So tell me about your patients. Do you have a story that you can tell me about a patient and how you help them?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you two quick stories. So the first story is going to be a female who suffered from long-standing irritable bowel syndrome for about 7 years. So for those of you who don't know irritable bowel syndrome, so irritability, so you feel irritable. You have diarrhea, sometimes constipation, like a mixed picture, bloated all the time, lack of energy, you get cranky, you get moody. She was not able to perform. She was a professional woman, and her energy was down to the point she couldn't focus in her meetings, and her professional life suffered. She lost money. Her personal life suffered, intimacy-wise with her husband, and she's been to every single clinic, very, very well-known clinics out there. If you can think of a well-known clinic name, I don't want to mention the names, but let's just say that she was very, very thoroughly evaluated with endoscopies, colonoscopies, CAT scans, stool tests, blood tests, and she was told everything was fine. And if you just think about that for a moment, clearly for 7 years, of agony, and she's clearly not fine because she's doing poorly in her professional life, in her personal life. She's getting depressed. And then one of her doctors said, you know what, you're just depressed. Why don't you take some Prozac? Everything will be better. And by the way, for your IBS, just take some fiber. I mean, we've all heard those stories. So then when she came to me, we did a very comprehensive intake where I actually listened to her and I looked through her symptoms and through her papers she had filled out. Sometimes doctors don't do that nowadays. You fill out all this paperwork, but then nobody looks at it. So I did that, and then I listened to her probably for about a good 45 minutes to an hour during our initial call. And she broke out in tears because she said, you know what, you're the first doctor who actually took the time and listened. And then what I did was I said, you know what, I have this test. I know you've been everywhere. I know you've had every test, traditional test, but let me order this one test, which looked at from an infectious standpoint, because you always want to make sure that you really don't miss it. And Lord and behold, she had a very well-known bacteria that's called H. pylori. So H as letter H and pylori. And, this is something we see in traditional medicine all the time. And she's been to gastroenterologists and had traditional testing. And then on top of that, she also had a parasite. So she had not just a bacteria, but a parasite. And then, quick story, then when she went back to her gastroenterologist and said, hey, by the way, I have this parasite. Then he said, listen, this is the US, we don't have parasites. Obviously, we do. So then once we treated her, then her exact words were, you know what, I can feel it. I can feel it, it's working. And then, it took about 3 months, but within 3 months, her bloating went away, her diarrhea went away, her energy came back. She had some vitamin mineral issues because she couldn't absorb them properly. And we fixed that, and she became happier. And she saved, her, her intimacy with her husband. And then she also gained her confidence back professionally, that it was not all in her head, like she was told. So that was one story. And then the other story was a man who was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And he was on 3 medicines for type 2 diabetes. And he was told by his cardiologist to not eat fat. He was told by his endocrinologist to not eat carbs, and by his kidney doctor to not eat protein, because he was he had a lot of issues going on. And they were going to put him on insulin. So he was very scared. So then there's something called the hemoglobin A1C, which is a 3 months average test we do to measure the sugar, the glucose levels, and his level was 9, which is quite high. Mm-hmm. So his average blood sugar was in the 300s. So normal, it should be around, 80. So within 2-3 months, so first of all, I told him what he should eat. And we made it very personalized. We figured out what he could eat and when he should do it and whatnot. And then within 3 months, his A1C went from 9.2 to 4.8.
Wow.
Which means by our standards, his diabetes type 2 has been reversed. And he was able to discontinue 2 out of the 3 medications. His regular blood sugar now is 85.
Wow. And
in the process, he lost 35 pounds. He stabilized his kidney function. And he said, he's 52 years old. He's a professional. He's in the music industry. And he said, you know what, after I had my heart attack, I never had this much energy. I never knew I could feel so good. And then, by the way, some of those testimonials will also be available on our website. We're currently going through a little rebranding, but those will be available as video testimonials, so you guys can see that. But so we were very, very happy. And as a physician, that is why we go to medicine. That's why we go into medicine.
That's right.
To really help our patients and be an advocate for them. But there are, so those are, 2 examples, but there are countless examples of, patients getting energy to do what they want, patients losing weight, like 20 pounds. But most important, you go to the root. So if you are out there listening and you say, you have some digestive issues that nobody can figure out, we're your detective, like your personal detective. We listen to you and we figure things out for you. And you do the same thing with hormones for women. We do that for digestive concerns, for weight concerns, preventing diabetes from ever becoming an issue. So ultimate wellness, really, that's the idea behind it, about making it the medicine for you. And that's why we call it unique medicine at Kadan. So you are unique. And it's not just a cliche, but that's how we treat you.
Yeah. And, I'm particularly passionate about women and health. My background, my previous career as a counselor, women by and large tend to be not believed by their practitioners, and their symptoms are a lot of times told that it's all in their head. And one of the things that I really enjoyed doing as a clinician was looking at all of these health diseases that mimic psychiatric diseases. So a doctor might think somebody's, got some sort of psychiatric illness, and in reality, it's some sort of medical condition that's masking itself as a psychiatric condition. And the only way you're going to figure that out is through taking the time to listen to your patient and doing the right tests.
Right. You're so right. I mean, I've worked with so many women, and I know there's a lot of women out there who may have certain symptoms, and like moodiness, for example, and then next thing you know, they're on Lexapro or Prozac or Wellbutrin, and women are so busy, they have 1,000 things in their agendas to do every day, and now on top of that, they take pills, and they think that's the normal to be on pills. And one quick thing, because you mentioned your history as a mental health counselor, most of the chemicals that are important for our brain, those are called neurotransmitters, they actually are coming from the gut, so 90 to 95%. So if you're out there and you have these symptoms, could be mood changes, or if you do truly have gut symptoms to begin with, get tested. Find a doctor who is willing to listen to you, to work with you. If it's not me, there are other functional medicine providers out there who will take the time to listen. I mean, there's millions of people out there with your symptoms, but in the end, you have your own reasons why you have those symptoms. And one of the very first books that Terry told me to read, which you mentioned speed reading, was It Starts With Why by Simon Sinek. Some of you may be familiar with that book, and that principle can be applied into any industry, but specifically here at Kadan, that's one of our mantras. We say, look, why do you feel this way? The how, is easy, in the pills or supplements or whatever, but why did this really happen? So just wanted to throw that out there.
Absolutely. And, there are times that people legitimately do have a clinical depression and need clinical treatment for depression. That is completely legit. But there are many, many times that people are diagnosed with depression, and it's really something more like hormones or, your gut health, or, who wouldn't be depressed if you had diarrhea for 7 years? My goodness, right?
Of course. But like you said, so first of all, number one is the patient has to be safe. So I make sure our nurse practitioners, our PAs, they're all the ones that work with us, the ones we train, we really teach them, first do no harm, make sure that your patient gets what they really need. If you need to be on something like Lexapro or Prozac, some people do, and that's fine, that's important. But then, again, don't forget that, try to really look into the whys. And that's really one of the best things you can do for yourself, to come up with the root cause and to say, you know what, you're not crazy. It's not in your head. It's actually in your gut. Yes. So keep that in mind.
Yes. And if you would, I would really like to hear a little bit more about weight loss, because I think that is something that probably more than 50% of our society, male and female, is trying to address.
Yeah, I think that I think with weight loss, I think that there's a lot of gimmicks out there, a lot of companies that want to make a quick buck, and a lot of promises out there, and I will tell you, I've seen probably about 40,000 patients in my career, in my, young career, now over the last, 13, 14 years. Actually 16 years, come to think of it. So, and over all these years, there were thousands of patients that have successfully lost 20, 30 pounds very easily. Then there was one patient, I remember, he lost, 75 pounds within, 5-6 months. And my ultimate success story was a patient who lost 250 pounds within 2 years. So what's really the secret with weight loss is that Number one is you want to understand that it's often is a hormonal issue that a lot of you guys know. And you have to get tested. So is it your thyroid? Is it, your insulin levels that are too high that are making you gain, fat? Is it, that you're an emotional eater because, what are the comfort foods? The comfort foods are the carbs. But again, why? So the issue is not so much the how, but why do you want to lose weight? Why is that so important for you? And if you imagine right now, for example, as a woman, losing those 20 pounds, what would that look like? Can you fit in your skinny jeans? Do you want to be more sexy, for your husband or boyfriend, or, partner? But the bottom line is that, there's really not a straight answer, because otherwise, we would have solved the obesity problem, the obesity problem in America. But fortunately, a lot of people now realize that we all know sugar has something to do with that, to some degree. But then the other point is also inflammation, which goes back to the foods we're eating. They're GMO foods. But then also a lot of people have undiagnosed thyroid issues that we discover all the time, especially in women. A lot of women have undiagnosed thyroid conditions, and with the right combination, you can lose the weight. But bottom line is, why do you want to lose it? Get together with the right person, and then very, very successfully, it is possible, to lose it the right way. And that's what we do every day with our clients.
Very good. Well, that's exciting. And there's so many health benefits. Even if you are very overweight and you lose like 10%, you're going
Right.
to increase your feeling well and your lifespan just by losing some.
Yeah, and I think one thing also to add is that there's a lot of you maybe listening out there, or maybe a friend, who has been told, you know what, you're really lazy. Why don't you get up and exercise more? I think that will help you. Don't eat so much. And,
Right.
And then all of a sudden, we start believing that. And, most important is, the art of functional medicine is really to listen to each person and to discover sometimes, why are they an emotional eater to begin with? What are some things they've never resolved? Some emotions that have been haunting them, for years. One person, for example, held back that, one of their family members, was abused, for example, and she, noticed this, and she always kept it to herself, and she never talked to anybody about it. But then in one of our sessions, I told her, look, I think, there's some emotional component that we haven't addressed yet. Almost like me as a doctor being a coach, which there's a lot of psychology in what we do every day. But then finally, I just asked her, I said, why do you think you're gaining weight? And then she said, what, nobody ever asked me that, what I think, and then she said, look, I'm going to tell you what I think, and you tell me if this could be the reason. And I said, yes, of course, because cortisol is your stress hormone. And, this goes way back when you never really addressed it. So if you want to let go of your fat, then you have to let go of that emotion. And she felt so liberated and so relieved that finally, this was off of her chest, and this is a true story. She lost 60 pounds within 6 months. And,
Wow.
prior to, she was not, crazy overweight or obese. She was maybe, I think, like 225 or something like that. And then next thing you know, she's at around 170, 165, and gaining her confidence back, smiling again, and all these things, that were hidden. Mm-hmm. And she said, she actually said, she found her smile again. So,
wow.
So, yeah.
That's rewarding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, a doctor in the typical medical arena where you got 10 to 15 minutes to see the patient is never going to uncover that.
Right.
Never going to uncover that.
Right. So I think a tip for you guys out there, one thing I want you guys to do is, look at your own self and say, what do you want to achieve health-wise, wellness-wise? What is your number one goal? And then right next to it, why do you want to do that? Why is that so important? And then what would your day look like if you had achieved that?
Yeah.
How would you feel? And you could also use that coaching wise. What is the one thing holding you back, or why do you want to change?
Right.
So that's, very, very important. And then, reach out. There's various people out there. I'm not the only one. But that's really critical, because it starts, every single one of us is a doctor. So you just have to let it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that the thing is, you have to have somebody that you trust, somebody who is going to spend the time and to partner with you. And
Right.
You're right that a lot of what I do as a coach and what you do as a functional medicine physician is similar. So like, what is that future state that you want to get to? And as a coach, I always tell people, you could get there without me, but with me, you might get there in a way that you might otherwise not have thought of, and you might get there more quickly. So it's really functional medicine and coaching. I think both are for smart, capable people that have a goal in mind and want a trusted partner to walk those steps with them.
Exactly. And if you think about it from a professional standpoint, that everybody knows that to be successful in business, for example, you have to surround yourself with people who are better and know more than you, be it, public speaking, or be it, a financial advisor, or, a personal coach, life coach. There's your functional medicine coach, functional medicine mentor. So, you could be, I remember when I reached out to you and worked with you. I mean, you were instrumental, in my, time, when I went through my own, transition. I remember that very clearly, and I'm very grateful, for that. So, and I really mean that. And, but that being
As am I. That was a wonderful, wonderful working with you. And it's amazing to get to sit here and see you thrive now.
yeah. And now it's really about, you guys out there, you really want to know, who is on your team. You may think you're alone, but you're not. Help is right around the corner, right around the next email, the next website, or a friend or whatnot. Just make sure you get the help, and know that whatever you're feeling, it's not inside your head. You just have to have someone who listens to you and then takes you to the next level. But again, one of the reasons, we're also having this conversation tonight is that, we want to make sure that we teach other people how to do that. This needs to go beyond the one-on-one. You have to scale this. You have to teach other extenders, students. We're all students. Doctor means teacher. So that's another reason why at Kadan, we take that really to heart and really teach others, not just the clinical aspect, the business aspect, but most importantly, the human aspect, which a lot of times gets forgotten. So I'm very happy,
And so much of that happens at a unconscious level, but we as humans know whether we're going to connect with another human, and we may not know why, but we're either attracted to working with them or we're not. And, it's been a pleasure to know you and to work with you. And I would not hesitate to, and I'm picky too, so I would not hesitate to recommend somebody reach out to you for services or for mentoring for their own functional medicine practice. And I really appreciate you taking the time tonight to meet with me and meet with everybody out there. And
thank you so much, guys.
I definitely look forward to continuing to see the Kadan Institute affect many, many lives as the weeks and months and years go by.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so educational wise, we're taking it to our goal is really to be a global leader in the educational standpoint. I've seen patients internationally. I've worked with international providers. So for those of you interested to learn more, you can go to Kadan Institute. It's www.kadan.institute.com. Opt in, get the information if you're a practitioner or if you're a patient. Then what we have for you is we have a quiz, a little health assessment that's 100% free. You punch in all the symptoms you have, and then you book a 100% free call. Costs you nothing, it's just your time. And then you and I will talk for about 15, 20 minutes, kind of get clear of where you are, where you want to go, and then we can show you the map of how to get there. And if it's a good fit, then we work together. If not, if I cannot help you, of course, I'm not going to take any money. But then, Kadan Institute will provide you resources to show you where you can get that help. So you will definitely get the value that you need to make sure you get what you actually need and deserve.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight, Dr. Kessler. This was fantastic.
Awesome, Terry. Thank you so much. You have a good evening.
You too.
Bye, guys. Bye.